Hello, everybody. Samori Benjamin and Drew Saunders here. How you doing, Drew?
Hey guys, how's it going? How's it going, Samari?
Good, good. So we're back for episode 3 of the Roaring Lion podcast, and a lot going on in the sports world, and of course, in politics and government. And right now, this is a Monday morning after Sunday, week 5 of the NFL season, and there's a lot always interesting in the NFL. And the 49ers, they started the week 5 last Thursday against the LA Rams. They picked up a win. It was a big win. And of course, San Francisco, that's the team of Colin Kaepernick, where Colin Kaepernick played for a few years. He led the 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2012. And Cap was in the news over the last couple of weeks. And Kaepernick is somebody who really we haven't heard a lot from since his departure from the NFL, but he about 2 or 3 weeks ago, a terrible situation on the campus of Delta State in Mississippi. 21-year-old student, uh, name is Trey Reed. Trey Reed, black, 21-year-old male. He was found hanging on a tree, and there was a autopsy and all that, and it was ruled a suicide. And so Colin Kaepernick, he has an initiative where he performs autopsies, and his initiative is doing an autopsy on Trey Reed because Trey Reed's family and other individuals don't believe that he killed himself. So that was something that was very interesting. I was not aware that Kaepernick had an initiative where they provided free autopsies for individuals. So, but that was a terrible situation. So we have to wait and see what this independent autopsy that Kaepernick's uh, initiative performs. We have to see what comes from that. So hopefully next time we are on the air, we can get into more about that and see what the autopsy results from Kaepernick's initiative are revealed. Now, Kaepernick, Kaepernick Drew, no, I've got to tell you, I feel like he's somebody who when he took his knee, and that was 2016, he first did it. I thought it was an amazing, courageous thing. And I had been looking for athletes for a long time to take a stand, what have you. But, and he has so many followers, people who are not even sports fans who have become big Kaepernick fans. He looked at it kind of like a messiah. But, you know, I wonder, Drew, why we haven't seen more or heard more from him about that, Drew.
Well, he was attacked ferociously by the far right when he did that, of course, and it was enough pressure that I believe, if I remember correctly, he was not selected for any team for the following season, and I believe that was basically the end of his career. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
be
that's
interesting to see
correct. So
the results of that second autopsy, especially considering what part of the country that is, then the gross legacy of Jim Crow and all the rest of it, and just see if there are any differences in the second autopsy findings.
yes, my point really is that even though Kaepernick is not playing in the NFL, he does not have to be a major figure in this country and to have a lot of influence and to make a difference. And really, that was the whole idea behind him taking a knee and all that. And he has so many people, so many followers who really hang on every word. I mean, he's at the point right now where if he says something to a group of people, a lot of people would do it and follow him. But we don't ever see him. We don't ever see him. He don't. He's huge now, so he does not need to be playing for an NFL team or be in front of NFL media cameras to get his point across. So that really disappoints me, to be honest. So anyway, now something Drew, I I had forgot. So we had the terrible shooting at the building where the NFL headquarters are located this past summer, and the shooter, he was a former high school football player. That was it. He had not played above high school, and he felt like he had CTE, and but we know that CTE you cannot determine if a person has it while they are alive to be deceased, so you can examine their brain. So he wrote a letter, a death letter, and went in there and shot up innocent people, and he wanted to take out the NFL offices, but did not know where it was at in the building. Went to the wrong floor, and so it came out this past week that he did have a small case of CTE after autopsy on his brain was done. But I heard a doctor speak on the news, and uh, she said that his small amount of CTE was consistent with somebody who did not play a lot of football. And she also said that just because a person has CTE does not mean that they should or that would cause them to be violent or kill people. Because a lot of people think, I feel like a lot of people, because you heard this with Aaron Hernandez, another psychopath football player. He played in the NFL and ended up killing some people. And you hear, oh, he had CTE, like as that's an excuse why they should do that stuff. So I don't really buy into that. But no, I remember it because I had forgot when this whole incident went down. I had forgot that I had been to that building for a protest for Colin Kaepernick in the fall of 2017. That was the first year he had been blackballed out of the league, and yeah, I did a report on that, and I had forgotten that protest, that rally was outside of the NFL offices. I had forgot, yeah, it was, and so I had been actually to right on those footsteps where that gunman walked that day. And The final thing I want to say here is we saw how as my light goes out, but we saw
Hmm.
how Donald Trump uh, was at Yankee Stadium on 9/11, and that really caught the ire of a lot of folks, some folks. And now, a few days after that, we hear that a former Yankee, a key member of the Yankees' last World Series winning team, Mark Teixeira, who we had not really seen a lot around the club or whatever. He had been on media, ESPN, for a while after his playing career. Then he went away, and then he announced a couple of weeks ago that he will be running as a Republican for the U.S. House of Representatives seat, Texas's 21st congressional district. Uh, he is running, and he says that he is a big supporter of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's America First agenda. He really believes in and wants to help get that message out. And he says that he's been inspired by Trump for a long time. So that's just more Yankee business, if you will, associated with Donald Trump.
Yeah, and so that is a district that, according to Google Maps, is east of Austin and north of San Antonio, just to give you an idea of where that is in Texas. There's certainly been a lot to get to since our last episode. The terminally online part of the far right has almost come to seem like they're more interested in fighting about who gets to set the narrative about their version of reality in a Charlie Kirkless world than they are in fighting the left. At least for now. That's probably not going to last, but let's see. But what is more important is the constant double track of showy distractions versus the worsening economy. Let's start with the distractions. The federal government has, of course, shut down, and the Hatch Act has been violated. This is a law that prevents federal employees from using their official government communications or resources for explicitly partisan ends. This is to prevent taxpayer dollars from going to partisan purposes and to create a really clear, bright red line between politicians and career bureaucrats who are just dedicated to serving the American public. And yet, if you go to the Department of Agriculture's website, uh, the homepage has a banner that reads, due to the, and I'm quoting now, due to the radical left's democratic shutdown, this government website will not be updated during the funding lapse, end quote. I could fill the entire show with the rest of examples of government websites where the official government department that's supposed to be independent of politics is officially blaming the Democratic Party rather than not the Republican Party. Um, President in Trump has also tried to send a couple hundred of the California National Guard to Portland, Oregon, claiming that this epicenter of American progressivism is a hotbed of crime. And as of this morning, um, a federal judge has ordered this to be halted. There are also reports of Trump planning to send more National Guard troops to Chicago. Interestingly, he doesn't seem anymore to be sending National Guard troops from the state that the city he's trying to occupy is in. He's sending National Guard troops from another state. Well, let's see if that's just an anomaly or if that's something he keeps doing. Uh, Speaking of which, we also need to talk about the speech that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth gave to hundreds of the military's most high-ranking generals and admirals, many of whom were pulled from highly sensitive assignments in military bases across the globe to all be in the same auditorium in Quantico, Virginia, at the Marine Corps base there. He seemed to keep pausing throughout the speech for applause lines or for laughs as he went on and on about ending wokeness at the military and attacking the very idea of toxic leadership in the military and attacking the very idea that of women being able to serve in frontline roles and all the rest of it. And he kept chewing out generals for having facial hair and not meeting physical fitness standards. But what's interesting is that all of these generals and admirals greeted him with silence. There's a few spatterings of polite applause, especially at the end, but most of the speech they just sat there, and I've read so many reports of just the military top brass just being stone faced. That was the phrase that was used over and over in the media. And then President Trump followed him up on stage, and President Trump actually said when he was replacing him on the stage, quote, "I've never walked into a room so silent before." End quote. And I think that the Atlantic Magazine's staff writer Tom Nichols put it best when he gave his take on the two speeches. Nichols is a conservative commentator with a long background in the military, including a quarter of a century of teaching military officers at the National War College in Washington, D.C. And Nichols wrote this. For a long quote, guys. Um, Even if these officers had never attended a MAGA event or ever seen one, they were now in the middle of a typical unhinged Trump diatribe. The president had a speech waiting for him on the teleprompter, and then Trump would hunch his shoulders and apparently pick off a stray word or phrase from it, like a distracted hunter firing random buckshot from a duck blind. But Trump has always had difficulty wrestling with Stephen Miller's labored neoclassical references and clunky faux Churchillianisms off a screen and into his mouth. Mostly, the president just decided to riff off his greatest hits to the stone-faced assembly. As comical as many of Trump's comments were, the president's nakedly partisan appeal to U.S. military officers was a violation of every standard of American civilian military relationships. And exactly what George Washington feared would happen with an unscrupulous commander-in-chief. The most ominous part of his speech came when he told the military officers that they would be part of the solution to domestic threats, fighting what he called the enemy from within. He added, as a kind of trollish afterthought, that he told Hegseth that we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military, because they're going to Chicago very soon. That's a city with a big city with an incompetent governor, stupid governor. And later, Nichols went on, it's one thing to serve it up to a adoring MAGA crowd. They know that most of it is nonsense and only some of it is real. They find it entertaining and they can take or leave as much of Trump's rhetorical junk food buffet as they would like. It is another thing entirely to aim this kind of sludge at military officers who are trained in a culture to treat every word from the president with respect and regard his thoughts as policy. And that's the end of my quote from Nichols. Policy is indeed in the hands of President Trump right now. Ever since his last election, particularly, he has made it clear that he is the one driving decision making in D.C. right now, and nobody else. But at the same time, the government has shut down, and his party is constantly insisting that the Democratic Party is to blame. But according to a CBS News YouGov poll that just came out, 39% of Americans are blaming Trump and the Republicans for the shutdown. 31% said that the parties are equally at fault, and 30% are blaming the congressional Democrats. This is largely in line with Marist's findings from last month, where they found that 38% of respondents blamed Republicans, 31% blamed both parties, and 27% blamed Democrats. 4% didn't blame either party. Congressional Democratic leadership is not very popular right now, of course. And what is interesting, though, is they could have taken a stand on a lot of different things. But in the end, the Democratic Party chose to make the fight about preserving Obamacare subsidies that 23.6 million people are getting through that marketplace, according to the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services. The Republicans have taken up an old claim that the Democrats are doing this shutdown in order to give health care to undocumented immigrants, which, for the record, isn't a possibility because federal funding going to undocumented immigrants is legal and has been for years and years and years. Um, and furthermore, around 11 million people are expected to lose their Medicare insurance between now and 2034, according to the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, which is a office within Congress uh, whose only job is to provide the most independent and accurate scorecard about what legislation is going to do to the economy and to the budget. Um, but and even more people are going to lose their Medicaid services as well. But that won't happen until after the midterm elections. And the midterms are going to hang on the economy perhaps more than usual. Trump may have won last year's election on the promise of reducing inflation, but his tariffs have made the opposite happen. While more and more people can't afford to buy things as basic as eggs and pay for rent, uh, 32,000 jobs were lost in the private sector last month, according to ADP. ADP is one of the largest private payroll processing companies in the country. Now, normally I would prefer to quote the federal government's monthly jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, another agency whose only job is to provide the most accurate and objective statistics about the state of the economy as possible. But we can't do that at the Roaring Lion right now. And for the record, that is not because Trump fired the former commissioner of the BLS because he didn't like the numbers that were reported, which is what a lot of people might think, I think. The real reason is that it is the shutdown. Uh, uh, Non-essential services are always shut down during a government shutdown, and only what's deemed essential, like the military and Social Security, and air traffic control, keeps going. And those employees are being asked to do their jobs without pay, by the way. They will be paid eventually when the government comes back, but for as long as they're shut down, they will not get their pay until Congress comes back and they get a big lump sum when the government officially reopens. Uh, and this is actually the first time that we will be without a federal BLS jobs report this month for the first time in 12 years, according to HR Drive. Um, and Trump did have a nominee to replace the man that he fired, a man called E.J. Antoni from the right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation. But the White House pulled his nomination 6 days ago, interestingly. Trump will likely find a replacement, but is yet to see if the current mid-interim leader, who's been with the foundation with the agency rather, since 2015, William Wiertowski, will be able to get another set of statistics on the state of the American economy out before Trump can replace him with someone else. Oh, and by the way, I don't know how many people have heard about this, but an anonymous artist has created a statue of Donald Trump holding hands with the disgraced ex-financier and convicted child molester Jeffrey Epstein, holding hands and skipping in a rather effeminate frolic. It was placed in the National Mall in full view of the United States Capitol, but it was taken down rather quickly by the United States Park Service. Claiming that whoever made it, and we still don't know who made it, didn't do the permitting correctly. But that was quickly reversed, and as of this recording, it is still on the National Mall. So there's that.
Wow, yeah, wait, so you said it's on the National Mall?
Yeah, hang on. Um, I'm just going to make sure that it hasn't changed because that was true as of last night. Let me just make that sure that's going to NPR. It's still there. Going to Global, going to the LA Times, going to Axios. All right. Yeah, it looks like it's still there. All right. So as of this recording, it's still there. Let's see if they remove it again. But they may very well do that.
Yeah, yeah, right. So with the government shutdown, do you see uh, a solution to this anytime soon?
Well, we're in such a deadlock right now. The thing is, um, congressional leadership actually he has no incentive right now to change this deadlock because the Republican leadership is in lockstep with whatever President Trump does at the moment, and that's just the political reality. Um, and the Democratic Party's leadership is especially has no reason to want to end the shutdown because if you remember back in the spring, they had another opportunity to shut the government down over budgetary reasons. And Chuck Schumer, the minority leader who is from Brooklyn, he decided to take a pass on having a shutdown fight, and he got so much blowback that he went from being reasonably well liked within the Democratic Party to having a majority of people, especially young and highly partisan Democrats, wanting to get rid of him for not fighting enough. So it would be self-defeating for him to give in again. And Speaker Hakeem Jeffries, who is also from Brooklyn, uh, also doesn't have any reason to fight, to end the fight rather. He is going to try to make a stand and get more well known because he's of course not well known in the public in general. But and the last thing he wants is is going to be to have the first thing people hear about him is that he caved. So I think the only thing that's going to change is if the polling in the next couple of polls goes really against the Democrats or against the Republicans. At a certain point, there will be enough of a pressure point that one side is going to have to cave. We just don't know yet who it's going to be.
Do you know what? As from what you know of past presidential regimes and government and how they worked with Congress and all that, and the fellow Republicans, can you remember a Republican president who has had such control over his fellow Republicans to the point where it seems like anything that he says, all these other Republicans are just going along with it, kowtowing to him.
No, there's never been a party that has been in such a grip of a president as this one. There are partisan reasons for this. A lot of it is the legacy of January 6th and just the and just the fact that Trump has managed to create such a touchstone with a certain segment of the American public back in 2015, and he's held it ever since. But the interesting thing um, is that there is a split within the MAGA movement between um, people who and the split is happening mostly along um, economic lines in one sense. And so, we have the all of the majority of farmers voting for President Trump, and then all of a sudden, once he actually came into office, and the ICE crackdowns went on farmers, and the agriculture industry relies on immigrant labor, whether that's documented or undocumented. That all the undocumented farm laborers have largely scattered because they don't want to be deported back to their home countries or mistreated by ICE. And also, even the laborers who are here legally, because of all the lack of due process that the ICE has done in their behaviors in the last year, they are afraid that they just won't be treated equally. They will be racially profiled or just profiled based on their nationality, and they will not get a fair shake anyway. So they're also gone. And as a result, there are fields and fields and fields in this country that should be harvested right now, but just aren't getting harvested because there's just not enough people. The other, and that is also true across the construction industry and hospitality and a bunch of other industries. But also, the Epstein files are really proving to be a long-term um, scandal that just isn't going away. Um, and it has the potential to create a big wedge within the current right wing and far right wing of the Republican Party, but it's still early days. This is not a quick scandal. This is a slow burn of a scandal, and uh, and it is also a divide in the Democratic Party, to be fair, but it has a divide between um, between people uh, who are against Trump 100% of the time on everything, but and want to have a scorched earth policy kind of approach, and the other Democrats who are also against Trump, but they're trying to be more strategic about it. And that's the real dividing line in that party.
Okay, yes, and with the ICE raids and military in some of these cities, I mean, Trump is really acting like a true fascist, and he wants to just rule like he's a king, which is a problem. Well, I think we should leave it there,
Mhm.
and great, great, great insight today, Drew. Folks, thank you all for tuning in to episode 3 of The Roaring Lion, and we'll see you all soon, okay? Have a
Yeah,
great
see you
day.
guys.